Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chelloveck Movies. My name is John, and this video is going to be an overview and a ranking of all of David Lynch's movies. I do own all of David Lynch's movies, even though I haven't watched them all. And like my recent Stanley Kubrick ranking, I will rank these now, how I feel about them at this moment, and I'll go back, I'll watch them all, like I'm watching the Stanley Kubrick movies. I've watched four, and I'm doing quite well with them. I'm really enjoying them. I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch all of David Lynch's movies and I'm going to re-rank them. Will it change? Who knows? Now, this list has been quite easy to compile. David Lynch has only ever made 10 feature films in his life. Can you believe it? I was quite surprised to learn that. I knew he hadn't made that many, but I thought he'd made more than 10. And he's made loads of short films and loads of music videos, but this is going to be his feature films. Now, I haven't watched three of them, so them three, I can't rank them in this ranking. So the ones I haven't watched are The Lost Highway or Lost Highway. The reason why I haven't probably watched these ones is maybe because they're a bit more of the obscure ones or they're a bit long as well. So that's Lost Highway. Inland Empire, which was his last film, which I think is 2006. Can you believe that he hasn't made a film since then? I think the reason behind him not making any more films is because he's really fell out of love with the whole Hollywood system. Although he's made his really return to form with the Twin Peaks, the new series of Twin Peaks recently-ish. So that's Inland Empire. And also with a big shout out to Leon Talks Films. I hope Leon comes back and starts to make some more YouTube videos soon. The Straight Story. He actually got this for me because this is the last one I needed in my collection of David Lynch movies. I'm so grateful that Leon has sent me this movie. Now, Leon rates this movie really high. And of course, I meant to watch it, but I've put it really on a back burner. Now, these three movies here, I will be watching when I watch all the other movies, because like I say, I'll watch them all from beginning to end, and I'll do a re-ranking and see what I think of them. But I'm really excited to check these out now. So that means I start my ranking at number 7. So coming in at number 7 is 1984's June. Now, I'm showing you some alternative versions in my collection of David Lynch movies. These aren't mainly probably my best versions, but I thought I'd just give these a bit of a dusting off, and you can see alternative versions. Now, I remember watching this way back when and didn't understand it. I remember having I think I've watched it maybe another twice since, and I had a really hard time getting through this movie. Now, I have got the 4K, haven't watched it yet, and it is worth like having another view of it because I did love the movie June, but this one is very odd. I know it was a bit of a problem he had with Hollywood and didn't want to put out his version of David Lynch's June, which would have been probably about 9 hours long. So it had to be really heavily edited, and it was a bit of a problematic movie for him, and it shows up in this. But on these rewatches, I'm going to give these like complete like fresh eyes, and I'm going to put. I really want to get to watch this video. The reason why I haven't watched June since is because the new June Part Two is going to come out, and I thought, well, I don't really want to know the whole story before I go into this movie because, right, really, well, I kind of know where the movie goes, but I probably will watch this movie a little bit before the new June, possibly. So that's at number 7, that's June. At number 6 is 1990's Wild at Heart. I remember when this movie came out, I loved it. It was one of those movies that you were quite shocked at how brutal it was. It's got an amazing cast. It's got amazing soundtrack to it as well, and amazing performances from all the people involved. Now, this is one of the ones when it came out, it was quite, it was a bit of a darling with it's Hollywood at that point, and I think people weren't really they were surprised at how sort of out there this movie was. Not in the way of being a bit strange, it was like hyper violent. And I think a lot of people didn't understand that David Lynch has a tendency to have a lot of violence in his movies, but I think they didn't really know about his filmography, other than probably, other movies that I'm going to talk about now. So this seems quite low, but the same as Stanley Kubrick. I think all of his movies that I've seen are absolutely brilliant. June, yeah, have a bit of a problem with that one, but I think that I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. I know it's not the movie set out to make, and hopefully I will get it more than I've had before. I'm interested to see how the 4K stands up because the little bits I've seen of it looks quite good. But this one here is one of those ones where it was one of the quite extreme ones at the time. And in 1990, there wasn't much like this coming out. And I was quite floored by it. And I can't wait to watch these with fresh eyes. And I haven't seen these for a long time, some of these movies. So at number 6, that's Wild at Heart. At number five is 1992's Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. Now, this was a movie that I didn't like at all when I first saw it. I thought the TV series is amazing. I love everything about this TV series. But when the movie came out, it seemed to be not quite what I was expecting. Actually, a lot of people weren't expecting it to be so odd in places. And but I have watched this a couple of times since, and I've grown to really like it. And I can't wait to actually watch the whole lot of this again. I love the new TV series as well. And actually, I'll have to watch this movie kind of out of sync with the TV series. I can't watch the full TV series. I haven't got the time for that. But I will. I'll watch this like independently of watching the actual series. But I do think that it works as a movie by itself. If you didn't know anything about Twin Peaks and you watched the Twin Peaks movie, you would be utterly bamboozled by it, and you'd probably think that made no sense. And what on earth was that all about? But you've got to really watch the series to watch the movie as well. And the movie looks, I think it's a really good journey into this Twin Peaks world, which is quite strange to say the least. So at number five, that's Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. At number five is 1986's Blue Velvet. Now, a lot of people have this higher, and to be honest, I've had this high at the top of the list sometimes. This list can change quite a bit, which you'll see there's quite a lot of strangeness happening towards the top of the list. But this movie is a great movie. Another one that when you watch it, it seemed like a bit of a precursor to Twin Peaks. It's got a bit of a flavour of Twin Peaks about it. And as well, it's a bit more of a linear story. There's some quite strange bits in it. As always, it's got some amazing performances from the actors in here, especially Dennis Hopper. His part in there is just unbelievable, Frank. So this movie here, it's always been one that I've really loved. I haven't watched it for a long time, actually, when I come to think of it. I know it's got a 4K somewhere. I think Criterion might have put this out in 4K in the US, I believe. But this movie looks spectacular. And as it's funny because it's number four, but this might change drastically. This is easily, some of these could become number one, apart from June. I imagine that's still going to be quite low. But it's an interesting filmography. And it's one of those more, this was one of the ones that you can kind of watch. Some of the David Lynch movies that probably sometimes don't make any sense at all. But sometimes you can get ones that make a lot of sense. And this is one of the movies that practically makes sense all the way through. Actually, as well, the music, the soundtrack to David Lynch's movies are usually always amazing. So that's at number four, that's Blue Velvet. At number three is 2001's Mulholland Drive. This is the Blu-ray. I have got the 4K. And this movie is one of the later ones that I've watched. I watched this fairly recently. A lot of people have said this is a great movie, and for some reason I just didn't fancy it. I don't know why, but it was one of the ones that I just put off because I thought it just didn't appeal to us, but I was wrong. This movie is such a good movie. Now, I believe it was meant to be a TV series, so it's kind of, you can say it's a movie of two halves. Actually, it's strange. I don't want to go into too many spoilers about this movie, but it's kind of like these both play like two different characters. The first half of the movie is completely different to the second half, and the second half is more as if they've kind of had a body swap and they're not the same people. It's hard to explain, as most of the David Lynch movies are. You can't really explain them 100%. But this when everyone talks about the jump scare in this, I think is one of the best jump scares you'll ever see. Some people they say, is that it? And I say, well, I don't know. It's the way I got it with was like the longest jump scare I've ever had, even though it only lasts for a couple of seconds. But apart from that, this movie is a spectacular movie. It's so different to any other. It's kind of like a David Lynch movie, but like a different David Lynch movie. It's a bit like a strange version of Twin Peaks ish. They're hard to pigeonhole, and sometimes you don't want to pigeonhole them. If you put them into too much of a this is that, it kind of takes away from the fact of what he's trying to do. Because sometimes you don't even know he probably doesn't know himself what he was trying to do. And sometimes do you really want to explain it? Do you not just want to just say, well, I think it's that, and that's good enough? So there you go. But highly recommend. Well, they're all highly recommended if I'm honest. But I wasn't expecting to like this one, but I really liked it. So I'm hoping that the three I haven't seen, Short Story, Lost Highway, and Inland Empire, maybe they'll go to number one. Who knows? But this was such a revelation. This movie is just brilliant from start to finish. So at number three, that's Mulholland Drive. So picking between these top two has been really hard. Let me tell you that. I love these two movies. And I struggled with what I was going to do. And to be honest, I've nearly got them. That basically, you could call them tied, nearly. But they might change. They might all change. These two might be out of the top two, which I highly doubt, but you never know. So at number two is 1980's The Elephant Man. Yes, I know. I can't get enough of this movie. I watched it probably more than any other movie since I started YouTube. I think I watched it about 4 times recently, and I've watched it about 1,000 times in all. This movie, it's got everything. It's funny enough. It's one of those. I think a lot of people say this. They didn't even know this was a David Lynch movie. I didn't even know who David Lynch was, and I watched this hundreds of times before I even realized it was the same bloke who did all these movies. But it's a masterpiece. There's no other way to say it. This movie is just one of the most emotional movies you can ever see in your life. And I always think to myself, and I get worse with it because I think, well, I know what's coming. There's a couple of trigger moments in this which always get us, and they're not going to get us anymore. But every time I watch it, they always get it. Or there's another bit that gets us, and I just think, wow. But this is what this movie does best. It's so emotional. The performances in here are second to none. The look of the movie, I don't think anybody rather than David Lynch could have done it because he did. He's painted this picture of this Victorian England just like no one else can do with the soundscapes. Even though you don't really realize it at first, there's about 3 David Lynch bits in it that start, the middle, and the end, and they really fall into his like Lynchian, like nightmare visions, especially from his really old short films, especially like The Grandmother. It plays out like that, but this movie is exceptional. So, strangely enough, at number two, that's The Elephant Man. So that means that number one is 1977's Eraserhead. Now, I love this movie. I love everything about it. I don't understand it at all. I don't really want to understand it. I like the fact that I've got my ideas of what it's all about. And to be honest, I can't understand most of it, but that doesn't really matter to me because when I watch this movie, I see other things in it. I think, well, it means kind of like that. It means something like this. It's got a lot of nightmare scenarios. And I think that when I first saw this on TV, I couldn't take my eyes off it. And I thought, what have I just watched? And usually when I do watch it, I do feel the same sort of feeling. I think, right, this is brilliant. I love it. I don't really know why I love it, but I just like the look of it. It's black and white. It is like no other film you've ever seen in your life. Yes, it is a horror. I think it is a horror movie. The horror scenarios in it about the couple, like Henry and his girlfriend Cindy X, and their deformed child that won't go to sleep. It is a nightmare. I mean, he looks out of his window and there's nothing to see but a brick wall. And he lives in this awful neighborhood that's just full of factories, and it's just bleak and grim. But I think it's funny as well. I think it's so funny in this movie. It's like the darkest comedy you'll ever see. Always get something out of this movie fresh when I look at it. Can't wait to revisit this one again. It looks great on here as well. I think it's a 4K digital restoration. I would love this on 4K. It would be the ultimate 4K for me because it looks great here. And I haven't watched this on the OLED TV as well, so it's going to be a revelation watching some of these on the OLED TV. So, like I say, with what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. I'm going to watch all of these in order. After I've watched the Stanley Kubrick ones, I'm going to re-evaluate them, and then I'm going to go through probably with other. I'm going to get other formats of these movies and show you what else I've got and talk a little bit further about what I think about them after a rewatch on my new TV and see how I place them, especially with having 3 movies to actually watch as well for the first time. So that's going to be great. So once again, thanks to Bonehinge 4. Thanks for watching. You take care, and I will see you on the next video. Cheers.